Today we're going to be talking about the structure of the Constitution. So essentially, what are the different parts of the Constitution and what do they do? The US Constitution has many sections, but overall it's actually a pretty short document. The whole thing in its original form contains less than 5,000 words. It's all on one page. It begins with an introduction called the Preamble, then it has 7 separate articles, and then a series of amendments. The Preamble is the famous part that you all know. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish the Constitution for the United States of America. This is one very long sentence, introduces the document and its purpose. It states what the Constitution will do, but does not actually grant any specific powers or make any direct rules. The principle of democracy is very clear with the introductory phase, we the people. This also shows that the framers understood and valued the role of the people in making and running the document. The preamble says that the Constitution creates a government that will provide stability and order, protect the rights and liberties of citizens, and serve the people's needs. They wanted it clear from the very beginning that this was a government by the people and for the people. So the preamble is important because it sets the foundation for the Constitution. The next part are the articles. These provide the outline for the 3 branches of government, and they also talk about state and federal powers. So Article 1 is going to be the legislative branch. This article establishes the powers of the legislative branch, whose main task it is to make laws. It creates a bicameral legislature, which we're going to talk about what that means later. That consists of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and it outlines the requirements for becoming a member of Congress. Some of these requirements include, for the House, 2 terms in the office, and it's unlimited, or if you're in the Senate, your term limits are 6 years, and you can run as many times as you want. A House member only needs to be 25 years old, whereas a senator needs to be 30 years old. U.S. citizen for 7 years if you're in the House, and you need to be a U.S. citizen for 9 years in the Senate. So overall, you'll find that the restrictions for the Senate are just a little bit more than are in the House. Also important to know, the title of the leader in the House is the Speaker of the House, which is currently Nancy Pelosi, and the title of the leader in the Senate is actually the Vice President of the U.S., or the President pro tempore. Article 1 also explains the procedure for electing members of Congress and many other specific procedures and rules for the legislative branch. Some important parts include Section 8. These are the expressed powers that talk about basically the powers that Congress has. Section 9 is also important because it outlines the things that Congress cannot do. And Section 10 provides a list of things that the states cannot do. Article 2 is going to talk about the executive branch. This branch is charged with executing the law or making sure that laws are followed. This article explains that only natural-born American citizens having lived in the U.S. for at least 14 years and having reached the age of 35 may be eligible for the office of president. Real quick, true or false? Can Arnold Schwarzenegger become the president of the United States? The answer is no. Even though he's been here for more than 14 years and he's definitely over 35, he is not a natural-born citizen, and so he cannot be our president. This article establishes the powers of the executive branch. It calls for the president to deliver the State of the Union speech. The president doesn't just give this speech just because he wants to. This is actually constitutionally required. People wanted to make sure that the president would keep the common people updated on what was going on. Officials of the government may be removed from power by impeachment in the case of higher crimes and misdemeanors. So this gives us an avenue to remove the president just in case he or she is doing a bad job. Article 3 is all about the judicial branch. It creates a system of courts, including the Supreme Court, and it empowers Congress to create also lower, less powerful courts. It also discusses punishment for acts of treason against the government. Article 4 is all about federalism. So this explains some of the responsibilities of the national government to the states and the relationship of the states to each other. This says that all states must recognize documents and laws of other states. So a modern example of this is how a driver's license issued in one state is still good in another. This goes back to the times during the Articles of Confederation when originally the states were all printing their own versions of money, and that was creating a lot of confusion and problems with trading between the states. So the Founding Fathers wanted to make sure that wouldn't happen again. This article also explains the procedure for how a new state can be added to the U.S., which we could still do if we wanted to. Article 5 goes through the amendment process. This is a really important process because it allows the Constitution to change with the times and adapt to the way the world changes. This ability to amend the Constitution along with its general nature is credited for allowing the document to survive for so long and still be so useful. So we've never had to throw out the Constitution and start again because we're actually able to change it. Article 6 talks about supremacy and contains the Supremacy Clause. So think of the word supremacy as meaning supreme. This states that the Constitution and federal laws, or those made by our national government, are to be the supreme law of the land. This means that if there's a conflict between the state and the federal law will always win, right? So the national government always ends up trumping the state governments. Article 7 talks about ratification. This is basically how the Constitution was put in place. It states that 9 out of the 13 existing states, at the time, we have a few more now, but 9 out of the 13 existing states needed to ratify the document in order for the Constitution to be adopted and become the official law of the land. We don't use this section anymore because the Constitution has already been adopted. The last section of the Constitution contains the amendments. The Bill of Rights is the collective term for the first 10 of these amendments to the Constitution. They were actually collectively ratified on December 15, 1791, and were designed to secure the liberties of citizens and prevent the government from taking away those liberties. So they were added on right away. The other amendments that have been added add up to a total of 27. Overall, the Constitution did 3 things in creating our system of government. It created the 3 branches in a federal system, it distributed powers to specific parts of the government, and it limits the powers of the government. This document is so important because it details essentially every part of our government, what powers are where, and who does what. Without the Constitution, we would not have a government.